So this is Savasha, and I wanted to read out all the Codex entries. At least not those that are related to controls. I won't read them out because, you will see what I do, and that is something you can work out as it comes. But the others I will. So on creatures we have an Archdemon entry. In darkness eternal they searched for those who had goaded them on until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer, the sleeping dragon Dumat. Their taint twisted even the false god, and the whisperer awoke at last in pain and horror and led them to wreak havoc upon all the nations of the world, the first blight. Threnodius 8-7. The false dragon gods of the Tevinter Imperium lie buried deep within the earth, where they have been imprisoned since the Maker cast them down. No one knows what it is that drives the Darkspawn in their relentless search for the sleeping old gods. Perhaps it is instinct, as moths will fly into torch flames. Perhaps there is some remnant of desire for vengeance upon the ones who goaded the Magisters to assault heaven. Whatever the reason, when Darkspawn find one of these ancient dragons, it is immediately afflicted by the taint. It awakens twisted and corrupted and leads the Darkspawn in a full-scale invasion of the land, a blight. Mabari War Hound. Dogs are an essential part of Ferelden culture, and no dog is more prized than the Mabari. The breed is as old as myth, said to have been bred from the wolves who served Theirin. Prized for their intelligence and loyalty, these dogs are more than mere weapons or status symbols. The hounds choose their masters and pair with them for life. To be a master of a Mabari anywhere in Ferelden is to be recognized instantly as a person of worth. The Mabari are an essential part of Ferelden military strategy. Trained hounds can easily pull knights from horseback or break lines of pikemen, and the sight and sound of a wave of war dogs howling and snarling has been known to cause panic among even the most hardened infantry soldiers. Magic and religion, I suppose. Magic and religion. The Tranquil. The Tranquil are at least understood, but no, not quite. The Tranquil are the least understood but most visible members of the Circle. Every city of respectable size boasts a circle of Magi shop, and every one of these shops is run by a Tranquil proprietor. The name is a misnomer, for they are not tranquil at all. Rather, they are like inanimate objects that speak. If a table wished to sell you an enchanted penknife, it could pass as one of these people. Their eyes are expressionless, their voice is monotone. Incomparable craftsmen they might be, but they are hardly the sort of mages to put ordinary folk at ease. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. We will run into this Brother Genitivi later on too. Yes, and we also met at Tranquil, obviously. The entry about the Tranquil, by the way, is different if you are of a mage origin. You get a different entry. There are a few that differ depending on your origin, and I think the major differences will be mage or not mage. But this one I know because I know what it reads if you're a mage. And now we have culture and history. King Maric Theirin. It is difficult to separate the man from the myth. The last survivor of the bloodline of King Cailan, the Silver Knight, Maric drove the Orlesian forces from Ferelden's borders, reclaimed the throne and freed our people from foreign tyranny. All true and all larger than life. He was born in hiding near Cathal's crossing to the rebel Queen Moira and grew up in the rebel camps, an outlaw in his own country. When the rebel queen died, Maric inherited her homeless nobles, malcontents and displaced freeholders, and with the aid of his friend Loghain Mac Tir built them into an army. After the pivotal battle of River Dane, Maric took the throne. He married Rowan, daughter of Rendon Garin, Earl of Redcliffe, and began the long, slow process of rebuilding everything Orlais had demolished during 70 years of occupation. From Ferelden Folklore and History by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Casteless. The caste system in Orzammar includes many groups of privilege, the nobility and the warriors above all others, but to a lesser degree the merchants and the smiths and the miners. Tradition establishes a clear hierarchy, but as in any culture with an upper class, there is also a clear underclass. These unfortunates, the so-called casteless, are believed to be descendants of criminals and other undesirables. They have been looked down upon since Orzammar's foundation. They have taken up residence in a place called Dust Town, a crumbling ruin in the fringe of Orzammar's common areas. Orzammar society considers these casteless lower than even the servant caste. Indeed, the casteless are not allowed to become servants, as it is too honourable a position. They are seen as little better than animals, their faces branded at birth to mark them as bastard children of the kingdom. The home district, little more than a slum, is a haven for crime, organized and otherwise. Orzammar's guards seemingly cannot be bothered to patrol its streets. The best that most casteless dwarves can hope for is a life at the whim of a local crime lord, ended abruptly by violence or an overabundance of toxic lycanale. Even so, there is some hope for the casteless, a dangling rope that offers a way up into greater Orzammar society. Since the dwarf's caste is determined by the parent of the same sex, the male child of a nobleman is part of that noble's house and caste. Strangely, it is acceptable for casteless women to train in the arts of courtly romance to woo nobles and warriors. They are known as noble hunters. Any male born from such a union is considered a joyous event, considering the low rate of dwarven fertility. The mother and entire family are then taken in by the father's house, although they retain their caste. The dwarves we know on the surface are also considered casteless once they leave Orzammar, although this is only relevant to those who return, if they are allowed to return at all. Dwarves who leave for the surface, the sun-touched as they are often called behind their backs, lose their connection to the stone and the favour of the ancestors, and thus are worthy of little more than pity, for upon dying they are said to be lost to the stone forever. Put that way, it seems a sad existence indeed. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Jen TV Chantry Scholar. The castes. Visitors to Orzammar should keep in mind that the hierarchies of dwarven society are much more complex than our own. It is easy to gravely insult a man simply by mistaking his position. Since this can lead to unnecessary loss of life and limbs, I will attempt to mitigate the danger for my fellow travellers. The society of Orzammar is divided into nobles, warriors, smiths, artisans, miners, merchants, and servants. Now you are undoubtedly saying to yourself, we have all those divisions among our own people. This is a dangerous misconception. Certainly we do have nobility, artisans, merchants, and all these positions are largely inherited from our parents. However, the younger children of noblemen often choose to be artisans or soldiers. The sons of merchants may join the army or become servants or apprentice themselves to a craftsman. This is all freely chosen, limited perhaps by the circumstances of birth, but still chosen. What is a matter of choice for most human folk is dictated entirely by birth for dwarves. No one may become a smith who was not born to smith caste parents. A servant who marries a noblewoman will never be a noble himself, and although his daughters would be nobles, his sons would be servants, for daughters inherit the caste of their mother, while sons inherit the caste of their father. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Jenny TV. The City of Orzammar. The dwarves are lauded for their craftsmanship, and the City of Orzammar is one of their finest works. Orzammar lies at the heart of the Frostback Mountains, deep underground. The city arcs outwards from the royal palace, which is built around a natural lava vent, continually fountaining liquid rock, which both lights and heats the entire cavern. The topmost tier of Orzammar is home to the noble caste, which, with their palaces, The topmost tier of Orzammar is home to the noble caste, with their palaces fanning out in both directions from the court of the king, as well as a shaperade, which serves as a repository for old dwarven knowledge. The lower tier is the commons, where the merchant caste holds sway, and where the finest works of Orzammar's craftsmen are for sale. In the center of the river of lava, connected to the commons by a causeway, are the proving grounds, a sacred arena where the dwarves by ancient tradition settle their disputes. On one side of the fiery river are the ruins of old dwarven palaces, fallen into disrepair, which the locals call Dusttown, now home to the city's Casteless. On the other side of the river are the deep roads, which once joined the sprawling dwarven empire together, but now, after centuries of darkspawn incursions, are largely sealed off. Nearly all knowledge of this network underground passages has been lost, even to its builders. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Jenny TV. Do I have to read? Oh, never mind. The Proving. Balazar Tredum. In the 23rd year of the reign of King Ragnar Duncan, an old man of the servant caste was accused of stealing a sapphire ring from his employer, Lord Dace. The servant was stripped of his position, he and his family thrown to the streets, and soon after the servant died. The son of the disgraced servant challenged Lord Dace to a proving, declaring that his father had been the victim of a cruel injustice and that the ancestors would bear him witness. Lord Dace had no choice but to accept. On the sacred stone of the proving ground, the nobleman faced the servant boy. Lord Dace carried a sword crafted for his own hand, and was clad in his great-grandfather's armor. The servant boy had neither armor nor weapon. When the battle began, the boy fought like a whole pack of angry deep-stalkers, flinging himself upon the startled lord, wrenching the sword from his hand, and prying at his armor with bare fingers. The boy knocked Lord Dace to the ground and beat him until the lord begged for mercy. The boy and his family were reinstated to their place in the Dace household, and the virtue of the boy's father was not questioned again. The ancestors had spoken, and no one would question their word, as told by Shaper Wartag. The Grey Wardens. The first Blight had already raged for 90 years, the world was in chaos, a god had risen, twisted and corrupted, the remaining gods of Tevinter were silent, withdrawn. What writing we have recovered from those times is filled with despair, for everyone believed, from the greatest archons to the lowliest slaves, that the world was coming to an end. At Weishaupt Fortress in the desolate Anderfels a meeting transpired. Soldiers of the Imperium, seasoned veterans who had known nothing their entire lifetimes except hopeless war, came together. When they left Weishaupt they had renounced their oath to the Imperium. They were soldiers no longer, they were the Grey Wardens. The Wardens began an aggressive campaign against the Blights, striking back against the Darkspawn, reclaiming lands given up for lost. The Blight was far from over, but their victories brought notice, and soon they received aid from every nation in Thedas. They grew in number as well as reputation. Finally, in the year 992 of the Tevinter Imperium, upon the Silent Plains, they met the Archdemon Dumat in a battle. A third of all the armies of northern Thedas were lost to the fighting, but Dumat fell and the Darkspawn fled back underground. Even that was not the end. The Imperium once revered 7 gods: Dumat, Zasikal, Toth, Andorral, Razikael, Luzacan, and Uthemiel. 4 have risen as archdemons. The Grey Wardens have kept watch through the ages, well aware of that peace is fleeting, and that their war continues until the last of the dragon gods is gone. From Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Korcari Wilds. It is said that in the midst of the Black Age, when werewolves stalked the lands of Ferelden in numbers that kept every farmholder indoors and a hound on every doorstep, a powerful Jarl of the Aldmari people stood and declared that he would put an end to the threat. His Arlings stood on the border of the Dark Forest in the southern border of the Ferelden Valley, and he claimed that the werewolves used the forest to launch their midnight assaults on humanity. For 20 years this Jarl led an army of warriors and hounds deep into the forest. In his hunt for the werewolves he slew not only every wolf he came upon, but also every member of the chastened wilder folk. Any one of them, he said, could harbor a demon inside and thus be a werewolf in disguise. For 20 years the forest rang with screams and the rivers ran red. The tales say that an old chastened woman found her sons all dead at the Jarl's blades. She pulled one of those very blades from one son's heart and plunged it into her own chest, cursing the Jarl's name as she did so. Where her blood touched the ground, a mist began to rise. It spread and spread until it was everywhere in the forest. The Jarl's army became lost, and it is said that they died there. Others say they wander still. The ruins of his Jarlings stand to this day, filled with the ghosts of women waiting eternally for their husbands to return. The forest of the legend is of course the Korcari Wilds. There are as many legends about the great southern forest as there are shadows, or so the saying goes. The chastened wilder folk have made their home there since mankind first came to these lands, and the wild lands spread as far into the south as anyone has ventured. Beyond the mists are vast tracts of snow, white-capped mountains, and entire fields of ice. It is a land too cold for mankind to survive, yet the chastened eke out an existence even there, and they tell of horrors beyond the wilds that the lowland folk could not begin to comprehend. To most, Ferelden simply ends with the Korcari Wilds. There is nothing beyond. The wilds is a land of great trees, wet marshes, and dangerous monsters. What more need be said? From Land of the Wilders by Mother Ailis, Chantry Scholar 918 Dragon. And that the Korcari Wilds remind me a bit of the north of the wall part of Song of Ice and Fire. Again, somehow, I don't know, they fit. Anyone want to write a crossover? I'd read it. Darkspawn. The surface claimed that the first Darkspawn fell from heaven. They spin tales of magic and sin, but the children of the stone know better. The Darkspawn rose up out of the earth, for it was in the deep roads they first appeared. Creatures in our own likeness, armed and armored, but with no more intelligence than Tespadam, bestial and savage. I have no idea what a Tespadam is, but good. At first they were few, easily hunted and slain by our warriors, but in the recesses of the deep roads they grew in numbers and in courage. Our distant Thaigs came under attack, and now it was the army, not a few warriors being sent to deal with the creatures. Victory still came easily though, and we thought the threat would soon be over. We were wrong, as told by Shaper Jibor. I assume that Codex entry would be different if you are not a dwarf, but I don't remember it. The Blights. My dear Annika, I would not worry about the assembly. Let the nobles sit together and argue about whose house owns the grandest Thaig. It keeps them from panicking, which they would surely do otherwise, and prevents them from making a greater nuisance of themselves. War is the business of warriors. I would say that the enemy strategy seems to be changing, but they never appeared to have a strategy before, beyond destroying everything in their path. For weeks their numbers appeared to be dwindling. There was talk that perhaps we were getting close to wiping them out. We could not have been more wrong. But today we came upon the body of their main force. I cannot give words to it, Annika. I have never before seen so much death in one place. There were Darkspawn beyond counting, and at the heart of the throng a great beast, as tall as the palace of Orzammar, with breath of fire. A paragon of Darkspawn, perhaps, for they seemed to pay it deference. They were leaving, marching towards the mine shafts which lead to the surface, but I knew when I beheld them that once they have devoured what lies above us, they will be back. From the Letters of Paragon, a Duncan. No, go away. And last not least, characters. King Cailan Theirin. I'd hoped for a war, like in the tales, a king riding with the fabled Grey Wardens against the tainted god. Son of the legendary King Maric Theirin, Cailan was the first Ferelden king, born into a land free from foreign rule in 2 generations. Since his father's death, he's held the throne alongside his queen Honora. Duncan. Men and women from every race, warriors and mages, barbarians and kings, the Grey Wardens sacrificed everything to stem the tide of darkness, and prevailed. Like many others, Duncan gave up his family name when he joined the ranks of the Wardens, a symbolic gesture of cutting ties. He might say this was a convenience in his case, however. His mother was from the Underfells, his father from Tevinter. His childhood was spent in the free marches and Orlais. His people were everywhere, and his homeland was nowhere. He was given the almost impossible task of leading the Wardens in Ferelden, a kingdom that had thrown the Order out 200 years earlier. Facing local suspicion and hostility, he set about finding recruits. Again, giving up your last name, that's a bit in line, or in a way in line with the Song of Ice and Fire, no? What? You know, the watches on the wall. Loghain Mac Tir. It takes more than legends to win a battle. Loghain was born to a farmer during a time when his country was under foreign occupation. When he was still a boy, he joined the resistance, where his considerable tactical genius quickly became apparent. He became close friends with Prince Maric, the last true heir of the Ferelden throne, and together they led the rebels to drive out the forces of the Olegian Empire. Maric raised his friend to the nobility, and Loghain is now more of a symbol than a man. He represents the Ferelden ideals of hard work and independence. Wynne. I will not lie motionless in a bed with coverlets up my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Wynne's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be first enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Cailan's coat to arms, Wynne volunteered to go to Ostagar. Okay, that was the Codex entries we have so far. I will continue this at the end of the next video probably, and then it won't be so long either. Das was zu welcher Weite.